Hey.
You know what? It's the what 7th today, so it's a day after Labor Day.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
they say don't wear white anymore, and and here's where I've always found, anyways, DJ. Gosh, everybody kind of tends to start to kick it into gear now. And it's a shame because we've lost, a couple of months with the summer.
Yeah.
When you start kicking into gear, right? Everybody starts looking at their projections now and like, oh my God, I'm so far off, or I'm this and that. But you know what? One thing that I think has kind of shifted, and it's part of the conversation today, is, the fact that we're not really seeing those Christmas rushes like we saw in history, right? Like last
Mm.
year, the year before, like 2020, 2019, there was a little bit of one, but 2020, the purchasing patterns and everything changed, right? And with that change came, lackluster, if you will, Christmas season. It's more just busy all the way through. Um, which kind of gets us into the conversation today, which is like rates and value stacking. How do we determine numbers that are going to work for any given period of time?
Oh man. Yep. And yeah, obviously thanks again, Dan, for doing the show. Here
Oh,
live in the group. Guys, we're live. Hopefully whoever is here joining us can throw out some questions. Do have some other questions that were asked from the group. I will follow up first. We did have a member of the group had on our last show had asked about the old school method, the box method. I believe you brought up your box, your filing cabinet thing, and CRM, and asked for how to. Uh, and I know I seen you commented underneath. So
yeah,
I believe it
yeah.
was Leah. Leah, if you're listening now, Dan did comment underneath with a video of how to. But if you could just quickly, I guess, just a quick run through of how you do work that and kind of what that video
So it
was.
was fairly simple. I mean, I took 35 of those green file folders. Every single prospect gets a manila folder, every single one that I'm chasing. And then I just put 1 to 31 and then 12 months. And I kind of keep the 12 months separate, and every month I switch two out. And it's fairly simple. Here we are sitting here September 7th, and say I had a conversation with DJ, and DJ said, you know what, call me back on the 14th. Got a few things I got to take care of. Call me back on the 14th. What would happen is DJ's file, DJ manufacturing, his file would take all my notes. I typically take the manila folder, I open it up, I staple 6 or 8 sheets of loose leaf paper in there, and that becomes my notebook. So I'm not working with a notebook and then another notebook and then where's my information on this sales lead. Everything's in the one file. And these 6 to 8 sheets of paper, every single rate I send, I print. Almost every single email I print. Um, Everything goes in the same folder. And what happens with this folder is it actually becomes the customer Bible, right? So every single conversation, when we had them, the date. So I just kind of put a short form date. I record the conversation in as much detail as I can. If I have to staple more papers in, I staple more papers in. And I walk, you can literally in my notes walk through the entire sales sequence with that customer. Now, the reason I found this to be so impactful and so effective is A, I pull the files out, I put a stack of files on my desk. That's my workload for today for call it follow ups. Right
Love
beside that pile is another stack of every single sales lead I have in my system, the cold call ones that I haven't called. Those stay in a different stack. So my priority stack is my follow up, then it's my cold call. And what happens is, as I follow up, there's no scrolling back and forth in my system. And where was that note again? I highlight things, I circle things, and all I do is I flip through the pages for 30 seconds. It's okay. I'm caught up on where I need to be. And then when I'm speaking with the prospect and we're moving through things, I'm writing down everything they're saying as opposed to, during a conversation, or as opposed to writing it down, then having to retype it or whatever. And then when I close the account, the transition to my team was instantaneous because
Mhm.
all I do is hand it over and it's got customs brokers, shipping addresses, rates, dedication, guarantees, value stacking, all of the stuff, the promotions, everything that we talked about or ever go through, stay in this file. And then this just becomes the working file as a customer file as opposed to a prospect file. And you know what? I've been through, multiple sales systems, the Salesforces of the world, the HubSpots, and no offense to all of them, they all have great things involved when you can, incorporate somebody's LinkedIn account and all these different things and all these different pieces or segments of the conversation come together in one portal. But for me, and DJ and I were just talking off air, I'm a huge tech nerd. But when it comes to this stuff, like I still draw things out in my notebook when I'm looking at a sales sequence. When I'm pulling an audible on my own personal sales sequencing, I draw it out. It's okay on the cold call. This is what happened, and I just map it out. And for me, just visually, that's how I get. I'm a visual person. I get things done like that. Um, I try to take things off of spreadsheets as much as possible and put them out in a sensible flow in front of me, and then obviously store it in a digital aspect. But for me, it helped me on a couple of levels. So one, showed you guys last time that I use kind of like a plastic box now, but I used to use a banker's box. And that banker's box actually went almost everywhere with me. Like it just went in my trunk,
Yeah.
it went in my front seat. And what would happen is, because every customer's in their own file and I got the phone number and everything in there with the contact information, everything I need, all I need is this to do my follow up. So, for all of us that are now getting back on the road and starting to re-experience or retrain ourselves to deal with people in person.
Yeah.
um, I don't know about you, DJ, but where I am, I mean, everything is 45 minutes to an hour away. No matter what you do, you're 45 minutes to an hour in a car. So I always said, you got two options in the vehicle. You can go to automobile university, which is,
Yes.
right, where you learn, you educate, you do something, or
YouTube
we
guy.
can work, right? And
Yeah.
so for me, being the digital geek that I am, my vehicle has to have the tech that I need to keep my workflow going. So I make sure I have, click a button. Hey, SIRI, can you call 1-513-324, and I rhyme off the customer's phone number. It calls. And while I'm driving, I can make my sales calls because I brought my box with me. Right. So
Perfect.
I'm not tied to anywhere. Like I've gone to a Starbucks and put my box beside me, pulled out my sales leads, dropped them on the thing, and drank a cappuccino and made sales calls because, like, so here's for me the big thing that I learned really quick in this business. When you're tied down, you're restrained. And what I mean by that, for me anyways, and maybe some of you feel this way, I need variety in my day. Like if I go to the office and sit in the same spot and look at the same, and always doing that, it gets so mundane that I lose the oomph in it. And so I want to be able to do things like, just go outside and sit on the front steps and just have my sales leads with me and make sales calls. I go out on my back deck with my laptop. I switch from this camera. I go to that whiteboard. You're always creating new things to help you stay invigorated and energized. And with a sales lead system like this, you're never tied down to anything. For me, that was the biggest thing. It was like, how do I keep track? Because you and I both know, if you have one of those systems where the notes pop up when you walk in, you turn on your system, you're like, okay, I got all these 15 calls today. You
Yeah.
print it or you just say, okay, here's my 15 calls. You get sidetracked, things happen, you're in and out, da da da. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I missed calls today. And then those calls add up to tomorrow. Well, very easy. You put these, 25 follow-ups on your desk. If you only get through 20, there's 5 folders on your desk when you come in the next day. So
Yeah.
what I would do is those 5 folders I would take in my car with me and I'd make the calls on the way home. Now, some of you might say, yeah, but Dan, it's 5:30, 6 o'clock. They're not going to be there. Yes, they're not going to be there. But like we said a couple of sales chatters ago was act as if your prospects are putting your name in their agenda. saying they're going to call me back, because that's so important. So for me, I would always, obviously, I'd 8 mile it right away. For those of you that know me, I'm very big on 8 miling, where at the end, Eminem came out for the battle rap and he trashed all his buddies. So the guy had nothing to say. So that's the first way I would start those calls would be, hey, you know what, DJ, it's Dan calling. I'm very sorry. The day, gosh, I don't even know where it went, but I
Eight
told you I was going to
miles.
call you back today. I'm on my way home. I was hoping to catch you. Hey, maybe I'll call you. I'll give you a shout tomorrow. And so you address the fact that you did not get a hold of them like you said you would, because you're taking accountability on yourself, right? So that in essence, I mean, I know we 11 minutes on discussing a sales system from last week, but it's very important that y'all understand the benefits. And if you go into that thread, and for all of you watching on my Facebook channel or LinkedIn or Instagram, it's Freight 101 Tips and Tricks. If you go there, request to join, you'll see DJ's group, and that's where we do a lot of the conversational piece that we're talking about today. But
Definitely, man, and guys. So hopefully he just gave you a good 10-minute filler there of some really good stuff. Just to touch on some things that he did mention, really is just the way that he's using his filing thing. Whether you're using the old school CRM method that Dan uses or new, really it's just what Dan touched on, which is so crucial, keeping notes of all of that. And the reason the notes are so crucial, one, it lets you keep track of where you're at in the process, like Dan mentioned. But two, it's a good tool to go back to if for some reason you don't land that client. You can go back and look through your notes and see, well, I did this for this customer, and man, I skipped here, and it's just a great learning tool. And again, that's all we're trying to give you guys is anything to help make your job a little easier and make you more successful, and that's what we're trying to do for our clients as well. Um, so what the show is about today, and obviously we'll get right to that because I know there are going to be a lot of questions, and this is a hot topic, especially for any new brokers. A lot of what they teach you or what you see because you have no basis to go off of in the beginning is going to be the load boards and the rate view. So DAT, which is the largest load board, has the rate view. Um, Truck Stop has a rate view of somewhat as well to give you a baseline of rates. One question, and thank you, Nicole, for asking this in the group. She asked and Dan, I'll let you take this first. Why are rates on some of the load boards so different from what carriers are wanting? That's a good one.
it is, there's always been, I've always been very skeptical about this is what you should pay on load boards. Specifically because I think, in essence, to fully understand and get context, we need to understand what a load board is for, right? Load boards were developed for spot quotes. It's really what it was. Um, Great tool to find people, hopefully connect on a higher level and start dedicating business. But in essence, load boards were created because, hey, I'm delivering to Waukesha, Wisconsin. I've never delivered there before. Let's go see what's out there, right? And the ability to do that from an asset side is fantastic. However, load boards again are spot. So if spot markets, which change, and listen, spot markets change from a multitude of angles, as simple as if you have a prospect or a customer that sends a quote out to 30 brokers, 10 brokers, that changes the spot market. Believe it or not, it actually artificially inflates that market, because all of a sudden 4, 5, 6 brokers are calling on the same order. It goes from 5 to 6 to 7, because if there's 4 or 5 trucks there, we're all competing for the same trucks, right? If there's 15 loads, 5 trucks, we're a 2 to 3 to 1 ratio, and it's going to be whoever pays the most wins, unless you have a relationship. So the way I always looked at load boards is that if you're just going and taking that one number and saying, okay, this is what I'm going to rate my customer off of, you're always going to find a variable, because in the morning when that rate was created, or when, again, understanding the context of how these rates are created, it's from people submitting information. So if only 50% of the people submit the information, they're running off 50% of that data. But what if that other 50% was 20% higher? right? Because it's not dedicated business, where most of these rates are kind of running from a dedicated business perspective. So what I always did is it was always three rates per lane. And when I got the three rates, it was very simple. It was name of the carrier, amount of days and times that they're there. So how many days of the week are you here? What times? When are you usually empty? And all because for me, that back end context with a rate is more important than the rate. And what I say, what the reason I say that is because if we fully understand our prospects' need for that lane, we can do something as, hey, you know what, DJ, I know you're shipping Tuesday and Thursday. I went out to three of my main people for this area, and I can get you the numbers you want, but it'd be Wednesday. Now, here's the thing, it'd be Wednesday morning. I know you're looking at Tuesday afternoon. On average, at 3 o'clock Tuesday afternoon, when you're looking for this pickup right now, our drivers only typically have 3 to 4 hours left of before they have to go down and shut down.
Yeah.
So after that sleeper berth, they're only leaving at 8 a.m. I could be at your facility at 8 a.m. with full hours, which means we're only 2 or 3 hours behind for delivery, which we can always make up in transit. So what you're doing is you're not just providing your customer, here's your number. It's here's the number you're looking for. Here's what I could do. If you want it at 3 p.m., I have to sit around for 5 hours. Nobody makes money. My rate's 1,500 instead of 12, right? But only if you have an understanding of those three. Because how many times, DJ, have you gotten a rate, gone back to a customer, you maybe made one phone call, or you jumped on the rate variation side of any load board. I don't care which one it is. You're like, 290 a mile. Okay, so I'm going to go in at $3 a mile, and then all of a sudden you start making calls and it's 350 a mile, and that's exactly what this lady was talking about, right? We've all done it. But if you go out and you have three people that are giving you numbers and say all three of them are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, all three of them are 4 days a week, you have three options now. And typically what happens is you get kind of like two medium rates and either one low or one high, right? Gives you a full view of what's happening. And if those numbers are too far off, get a fourth and then get a fifth if you need to. But you know what? Here's the big thing is it's not always speed. And I know in our industry, so many people say, you know what? No, man. I mean, we got to move at the speed of light. Um, I tend to disagree with that. And for all of you that disagree with me, that's totally cool. But we can't, because if we move fast and don't complete everything our prospect needs, then we're not really being of service. Does that make sense, DJ?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you touched on so much there, and just some of the things that he touched on that I'll kind of follow up with my thoughts as well. And Dan, obviously, jump in. But uh, so he did mention obviously the rate view and the different rate sources. Somebody new to the industry, again, if you've never moved a load before, if you haven't landed that first customer yet, so you have no experience, nothing to base it off of. Those rate tools are just that, guys. They're there to give you kind of a baseline, but like Dan said, there's so one thing he mentioned was dedicated. Now, what he means by dedicated is typically a lot of asset-based side carriers. I work for a smaller asset-based brokerage. Our trucks that are asset owned are typically already they're moving every day. They already have it kind of set up. So any new customers are never uh, typically going to end up on those trucks unless it's a large that ends up a dedicated, which Dan is talking about, or a contract where then we are moving X loads and we know how to properly keep those trucks moving. Again, on the carrier side, any carriers listening to this, we know what you need. Not all brokers are blind to what helps you guys make business too. I mean, we know you guys need to keep the truck moving. It being stuck somewhere for too long or this or that, and that's where really researching the lanes, researching your customer, and the relationship. I think Dan, the thing that we keep talking about and I harp on a lot is relationship. In the end, just like you're building the relationship with your clients, and you want to keep furthering that by asking questions and seeing what else you can help with. You're doing the same thing for your carriers, guys. You want to build a relationship with them too. The spot market is great, and like Dan mentioned, that's what the load, those rate views, and I'm guessing whoever had asked this question in the beginning, if it's a new customer, again, you're probably having to use the smart spot market or this because you don't have that relationship yet with those carriers to reach out to those guys first. But there is definitely this is just a tool that you want to use along with other tools that you have. The biggest tool is any relationship with any carriers that you already built or have. Reach out to those guys, find out what their rate is for that lane. That's another good base point of where you should be at then roughly. But like Dan mentioned, really reach out and do your research. Guys, we talked about again a few episodes ago finding your niche. So the reason I'll explain why, and this kind of ties into that so perfectly for me at least. When I was trying, I mentioned in the beginning, I had some customers that were refrigerated. I had some customers that were hopper. I had some customers that were dry van. So I had a mix, and to be able to really figure out the market. Guys, this is our market. The transportation industry is a market just like the stock market, just like the housing market. And it's a roller coaster. It is up and down constantly. A holiday can change things. Natural disaster like what just happened down in Louisiana. Hopefully everybody's okay and they're figuring that out. But FEMA getting involved changes things. There's a lot of that goes on with changing the rates. And so, using the rate tools, and she had just to follow up on her question one more time. She said, "Why are the rates on some of the load boards so different from what carriers are wanting?" So when you're using those tools, that's just a baseline. Then you want to, if you don't have those carriers to reach out to get what they're actually moving in the current market on a spot rate, like Dan had mentioned, contract rates or dedicated rates are going to be a lot different than your spot market rates. Again, the spot market is going to be a lot more volatile. It's kind of like buying a penny stock. Uh, you never know, where that it could go up to the moon, and it could go to the floor real quick. And so that's just the start is the load boards, guys. The DAT rate view, the truck stop rate view, or whatever, I forget what they call it in truck stop. But then you want to reach out to carriers if you don't have carriers. One thing we used to do, now carriers out there, please do not kill me for this. This is a training thing that they do train at the big brokerage houses, and I do understand why. Ghost posting is what they call it. You're basically throwing feelers out there from what that lane is going to run at. So if you're using the rate view, and rate view for that says that from Michigan to Ohio right now is $1,100. Now I will tell you, I know, and I'm spinning that rate out because that's a dry van rate that is typical for average throughout the year. Now, the past since COVID, nothing's been typical, guys. But um, on a regular situation, that is pretty regular. But again, not until you post that or reach out to your carriers and find out what they're actually moving it for, you have no idea. Um, and so you could post it up for 1,100 and not get a call. Uh,
Well, I
that
mean, I think that ghost posting goes both ways. It's not just carriers. I've seen tons of brokers ghost post because they're saying, "Well, what are we going to pay?" Well, I don't know. Post it and find out. And
but that's yeah.
instead of
Well, that's
calling, you post to find out what you're going to get. Right.
yep.
So that's normal. also you call carriers and they say, oh, I don't have trucks there. I was just calling to see what, get a feel for what was going on, right?
Yeah.
So, um, in the end, guys, here's the thing. What I My wholehearted opinion and my 2 cents for what it's worth. Um, your job is to know the areas your customers or prospects are going to and from better than they do. Because as a solutions provider, it is up to us. If you're shipping out of Georgia, if you're shipping out of Texas, if you're shipping out of Florida, if you're shipping out of any of the produce lanes, you got to go into it knowing at a specific time of the year you lose X type of equipment. If it's vented vans in Georgia, you're losing them to melons. You're like, it's just what it is. You're unless you have dedicated business year round that you have dedicated to a supplier and everything's kosher, then you won't lose them for produce because they're going to make decent money all year round. But when the majority, and for all of you, yeah, well, for anyone out there, here's the reality: is we squeeze suppliers all year long, and then we're surprised when they go and decide not to move our freight to take an extra $5,000 for produce. Don't be surprised if you're squeezing them. If you're being the one that says, I want to make money all year long, and you don't care about your supplier making money, when it's time for them to make money, don't expect them to care about you making money. Like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I've been through this so many times with people. It's like, but Dan, and I said, okay, so when the rates were down and spot market was down and people were paying $400 for that $600 lane, what were you paying? $400. That's what the lane was going for. I said, see, there's your problem. Right now the lane's going for $1,400 because there's melons. So if you're going to tell them when rates are low, you're going to pay them market rate. Well, how do I compete? But this is what sales is about. Like, if you're selling right now, and
Yeah.
I know we're getting into a very touchy area, DJ, because it riles me up huge. But if
Oh
you're going out and you're saying, okay, $1,100, okay, Mr. Supplier, I need you to do it for 1,000, but the going rate's 1,100, but I need you to do it for 1,000 to make your $100 margin. You're not a salesperson. You're offering a number,
yeah.
and the customer just happens to be the one that wants that number. So let's really start segregating a sales professional with somebody that's just selling rates. And if you're selling rates, that's great. Do whatever you want to do. You probably don't want to spend any more time on this call because you're not going to learn anything.
And Dan is so right with that, guys. That's the difference between a commissioned salesperson and a clerk. A clerk is somebody, that's something we would teach in sales, no matter what I sold. It is a lot easier if you're standing in a store and somebody comes in and says, hey, I'm looking for the so I worked at H Gregg a long time ago,
Or you're
electronic.
talking more like inbound versus outbound prospecting.
Well, just not even that. It's if you're spitting and just throwing out a rate to somebody, you're just like a clerk. Well, it's this TV is 13.99. Well, they see that it says it right on the tag. You got to sell it. Sell why it's 13.99. Sell why the rate is $1,400 right now. You got to explain. Really explain to them like you just went into with you know well, yes, we get it. When there is no produce season on this lane, you're paying 400. Totally understand that. You're getting a ridiculously good rate because the spot market might be low, but Mr. and Mrs. Customer, uh, be aware, and this is what you guys should be doing, but it's also finding that niche, learning those lanes, and learning your industry and your market. And it's going to be over time and just a lot of research. But like you mentioned, I mean, the 1400, you're explaining to them, this is why it's 1400. The,
Mhm.
what can we do, and then digging in like Dan kind of mentioned when he really asked the customer questions. Okay, it's 1400 now. Is this something we need to move now? Is there something else we can do to change this? Is it something that we can hold off on? The rates, and knowing maybe it's just produce season, and produce season is ending in 2 weeks. Hey, can you hold off? The trucks might come back to normal. But again, it's really fine tuning your skill, doing the
Well, it's
research.
also DJ. It's also, you know, we can. in every single one of these locations. Use that as a sales tool
Yeah.
because, think about it. If 5 months of the year your customer's paying 3 to 4 times more for their freight
Yeah.
for 5 months of the year, almost half the year, what if you were to give the supplier and strike a deal where you paid an extra $150 per load? What would that number be compared to overpaying for 6 months of the year? Like, and this is where you, as a sales rep, as a professional, I mean, really, in the end, we're consultants. We're the people that our customers should go to say, hey, you know much more about this. If we're talking about manufacturing doohickeys, I know way more than you, but you know much more about this. This is your world, not mine. And that's really the way it is. Unfortunately, a lot of the sales and that part of it that we get taught is just go out, dial for dollars, dial for dollars, dial for dollars. Where are you stepping into that almost advisory role, right? And when you're getting rates, it's a perfect time to be that advisor. Here's what's happening, and ask the suppliers. Like, what was the rate 2 weeks ago? Why does it jump so much? What happens? And these suppliers that you use, those are the guys digging the trenches, guys and girls digging the trenches. They know what's going on the front line. Well, then it's volatile because of this, this, and this. And it's volatile because this and this. Now, think of how, think of the image, credibility, and branding side of sales. Your image, your credibility, your brand, your customer's image, credibility, brand. Status. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Think about that for a second. And adding one, maybe two paragraphs about the volatility of the market, why it's volatile like that, what we can expect in the future, and here's your number. And then think of that customer getting that from 10 different people. And here's your number, here's your number, here's your number, here's a tiny bit, here's your number, and then there's you. Here's the reasons your number's this. If you go on a Tuesday, we could do this because of this reason. If you go on a Wednesday, think about that for a second. What the customer's going to go, whoa, hold on. This person's really going into detail. Now, again, caveat all that with the fact that your customer's not just looking for rates, right? Like, if only thing is a rate, that's all that matters is the rate, then just type $12.50. Do we have a go? That's your email. Forget about the friggin', book, forget about the white paper, forget about all of the case study, forget about all that crap. Because if
Yep.
all they want is a number, just give them a number. Because again, we go back to the baseball diamond sales sequence: qualify and then find out why they buy. And then third base is simply fulfilling that why every day of the week. It's very simple. Maybe not easy. Don't ever associate the two. Simple and easy, not two completely different worlds most of the time.
And to Dan's point, I mean, he is right. It is simple. It's not easy, but it is simple to if you can follow the steps and you can really find whatever program. Dan has a great HPLS, what you guys are seeing on the screen, the high performance. Program he has is, and it doesn't have to be that, it could be any program, but figure out your program, figure out your steps, and it's creating the winning process. But to Dan's point too, if they're guys, you won't know if they only are worried about the rate. Now, if they just keep asking rate, all that matters is rate, you have to find that out. I mean, what I like to do, the way I typically res- respond and react to customers is I will call it out from the beginning. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, you know, typically what I find is that uh, most of my clients, they have three things they kind of worry about: the rate, the customer service side, so how reliable we are, how quickly we can recover a truck, how fast how fast we're communicating with you, how fast we're getting answers back to you. If there is any questions you have, are you coming to me? Are you having to now I'm passing your I landed you. I'm the sales guy, and now I'm passing you to somebody else. And then finally, what and it's the what's in it for them, trying to figure out, but you're also trying to figure out what is most important. If they say rate, it's always rate, rate, rate. Well, then it's just a number. If now you're just uh, you're trying to, unless you have dedicated carriers or that relationship with a carrier that you can offer them something better, you're probably not getting in there because
Well,
their
not only
job.
that, I mean, if you get in for rates, you're going to get out for rates, right?
Yes,
Like,
yes,
and
exactly.
that's the problem is like
Yeah,
for all you sales reps out there, please do yourself a favor, qualify the hell out of the customer before you even go into the conversation, before you even start any investigating. Find out like what makes this person tick and what makes them buy, because I can't tell you how many times myself, how many times students, how many times colleagues, I've watched them chase a fictitious tail. Like, I mean, I gosh, at one point I probably had 150 leads that were just trying to save 1, 2, 3%. And then I can remember vividly landing a couple of them going, damn, I'm good. Like, I'm good. I'm a good salesperson. And nothing to do with sales. It was all about money. And running business for 2, 3 months, breaking your back, taking all the abuse, which is typically what you do from a prospect that just focuses on money, is you take abuse. In the end, all of a sudden business disappears and you call a customer up going with, well, we're saving 25, $30 over here. And you're like, shit, I just broke my back for you. But here's the thing is that's your fault. And I hate to put it like that, and I mean it with the
yes, it
utmost
is.
respect, but it's your fault. And you know, you didn't do the research. You didn't figure out what made them tick. You were just focused on your wallet, and so your wallet got a little bit of cushion. Probably not, because usually that's where the really low margins are.
Yeah,
A little bit of a cushion for a little bit, and now somebody else has taken your reduced cushion because what you did is by you giving a number, you eroded the margins of that person, and it's just this cyclical like continuation to the bottom, just for crap. I mean, I remember a student coming to me saying, "Yeah, this customer is paying 1,100 to Chicago." I said, "But Chicago's 1,300 these days." And they said, "Yeah, but they want to pay 1,100." But I go, "But where did they get that number?"
yeah,
Well, I don't know. I said, okay, well, so do me a favor, call them back and ask them where they got that number, because it's like 22% outside of market. And, running 15, 20 loads a day to Chicago, I know that market. It's
hmm,
impossible. They're not paying 11. Oh, well, we paid 1,100 6 months ago. Okay, well, how many loads do you do? We do three a week. So 6 months ago, they happened to pay this really low number of 1,100. So that's the number they threw out to this sales rep, because what is it? It's a new sales rep calling them. You want my business? Let's see if you can get me the number I want. We haven't paid this in 6 months. Well, you haven't paid it in 6 months because the market is dictating a different number. It's like anything, right? Like housing market. We look at the
yeah,
housing market. We put our house on the market. The market determines what the price of that house will be. Right now, the
yeah,
market's determining it's a couple of $100,000 above asking, right? A
yeah,
couple of years ago, market determined it was, negotiate. You want, a hundred
yeah,
thousand, we'll give you 85,000, and you settle on 80. You did a 20% negotiation. Like it's, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges I see, anyways, is really defining what it is that makes that customer tick. Because only when we define what makes somebody tick can we ask the right questions, deliver the right processes, deliver the right sequencing, deliver the right message. Like nothing connects. If you're talking service, 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 and your customer in his head's going, how can I save money? How can I save money? How can I save money? You know, we've all been programmed with, well, the more expensive something is, the higher quality. So we give value, we deliver value. That value message to somebody just thinking about money is going, well, that's going to cost me more. Fictitious as it is, whatever the case may be, it's reality.
yeah,
So focus on that reality that these customers or these prospects have. And then you could start saying, okay, how did these numbers play out? Last year, did you see an increase in X? Yes, I did. Okay, let me explain to you why that happened. Now you become that resource for your prospects to understand what's happening in the market. Because, I mean, I'll hazard a guess. I'm thinking I'm probably really damn close. 95% of customers don't understand their market.
Yeah.
Probably, and I would say maybe even a little higher than that.
Well, well, and here's yeah, man, and you are so right. So the seasoned guys, the guys who've been in this spot that you're calling on, who are handling loads regularly, they know, they know within, and here's guys, I might be pulling the curtain back on these
Pull
no
it back,
face
man. Go for it. We only
these
got a
no
couple of
face
minutes,
guys
so go for it.
these no face guys you're calling, just trying to get their business by spitting some low rate. A lot of these guys, just looking on debt or somewhere else, not really doing the research and just trying to undercut everybody, will get you in a lot of trouble, and you'll burn a lot of bridges fast. But on top of that, these guys know if you're talking to somebody, and you're not going to know who you're talking about if you're just calling, spitting out low rates. But I have those customers. Those are the customers you want, are the guys who understand the market, the guys who understand, yeah, it's really high and it's just what we have to do right now. It's going to come back and eventually we'll be there, but we're going to try to keep it somewhere here so that we just stay flat throughout the whole thing. Um, but you're never going to know that if you're not asking questions and just spitting these low rates, trying to snake customers from other brokers. Figure out what they're doing, figure out what they might not be doing or missing, or what you might be able to do better. But here's the truth, guys. There's some customers that it if it is very easy load, pickups and deliveries, 24 hours, there's no appointments. I mean, it's literally just a passing of paperwork and it's an easy time, then it makes sense for the margins to be smaller if it's a lot of work. But again, until you really dive into those things, you're not going to know. But what I'm getting to at most, and the most important thing, if you're just calling, spitting out these low rates, guys who have been doing this for a long time, they will either take it from you because they know you're never going to get it, or it's impossible for that lane because, like Dan just mentioned, the market runs from this lane to this lane because, again, guys, these unless it's a brand new shipper, a brand new customer who's never shipped anything before, they do have an idea of what they're regularly paying.
Yeah,
And they know at certain times of the year because they, again, how professional they are of it and how into the numbers there are of it. They know, well, typically I'm paying 1,100 for this lane. Well, now it's 15. Why? So they're going to, some will ask the broker why. Some will just start to answer the other brokers because, like we mentioned, these guys are getting 25, 30, sometimes depending on the what the customer looks like on paper to brokers coming after them. There's a lot of brokers calling. My main customer gets at least 25, 30 calls a day. 25 emails, calls, getting blown up every day. But they're just trying to throw low rates that he knows because he knows what we pay regular because he's on top of it as well. Uh, that they're BS. He knows, like, this guy's quoting. I mean, he'll tell me this guy's quoting me this. Is that even possible? Now, why is he asking me? Because I have that relationship with him. I built that trust, that relationship, to where he's like, is this even possible? And
because
then,
you're the expert. You're the one he counts on to make sure that he's looked after. And that's in the end, that's the only thing sales is how do you make the customers look good and how do you give the customers the most up-to-date information? It's really all sales is in every aspect,
value.
whether you're talking clothing, cars, tech, I don't care what it is. How do you achieve help? How do we as salespeople help you, the customer, achieve your goals? And if you can't, then walk away.
Yeah.
Like because you're much better to focus your attention somewhere where you can help them achieve for long term. I mean, I'm talking long term health, vitality, prosperity. Is stop playing in the weeds. David, or DJ, you were talking
Oh,
about
good.
just throwing out rates, just throwing out rates. Like I would even go a step further and say, for all you professionals out there, anyone who wants to throw out rates, just walk away. Why bother? I used to play the game where it's okay, I'll give you three rates and see where we stand. And I put my margins that I wanted. Don't care. what your product is, how easy it is. This is what I need because this is what I'm worth to run your freight. Now, again, my message is this is what I'm worth to run your freight at a high caliber level. Customer's message is money, 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 money. Very, very rarely those two connected, or they kind of did this. You see how I'm doing this? I would never go down. I would always stay, and the customer would have to come up. It's not an ego thing. I
It's
work hard to land deals, and I
yeah.
work hard for my customers.
And that's
And
yeah, and again, yeah, like Dan's saying, it's and you have to know your worth. In the end, know your worth, know your value that you're bringing to the customer. If you are just passing these along and it's a quick process, then yeah, you probably are just quoting rates. But if you're really diving in like Dan does, really finding out not only if we can give them lower rates or if they're overpaying. Obviously, are there the customers out there, guys, that they are because they've been using the same broker, same carrier for 15 years, they're getting ripped off and are way overpaying, of course. Are you going to find those regularly, though? No, that no business can succeed doing that. So they're always going to be trying to better themselves and their margin, especially with what's going on today. I mean, the prices just keep the cost of everything thing just keeps going and going and going. I mean, it's insane, and so shipping has to do with that. The manufacturing has to do with that. Everything plays a role in that, and unless we uh, are professionals, like Dan had mentioned, and that's again, are you a professional or are you a clerk? If you're a clerk, you're just throwing them rates. Okay, yep, so and so, you have this. This is how much it's going to be. That's it. You're not giving them anything more. Find out what. Why are they even looking to you for a rate? Why are they asking you for a rate? Are they still using the same broker? Did something happen? Are they getting quotes from everybody else that is 2 grand? You're never knowing if you're just spitting out trying to undercut everybody. Dig, 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 dig.
that
Be
all comes before you even talk rates. That's all in the qualifying phase.
yeah,
And again, if you're talking rates, you don't understand this stuff. You're in all fairness, you're not really doing your job properly in your career. You're not. Sorry, let me rephrase that. You're not doing yourself any favors for long term. All right, my
yes,
friends,
yeah,
that's our time for today. That's all the harassment and rants we're going to go on today, DJ.
yeah,
Everybody, take
yeah.
care.
No,
We'll see you guys on Thursday.
no more beating.